Hello, my name is Ariana Valentini, and I'm a director of product marketing here at Precisely. I'm joined here today with Ian Hartley, senior director of product management, and we are here to talk to you about something that I think is on a lot of people's minds in the IT operations space, and that is AI ops. And more specifically, talking about Gen AI and what that means for getting machine log data from IBM and Z into observability systems for remediation. Before we get into the AI of it all, I just want to start out with a customer quote. This was something that came from a customer that we were interviewing around their usage of one of our products. And he was talking about, what was happening when they were getting error messages and reporting manually. So, and I think that many people have been through this. It's like, when an issue is happening, what's actually happening? Are we on an incident bridge simply because the machine has an expired cert, or are we actually being hacked right now? If we address this issue, what really is that downstream impact to that issue? And then, what's the context of all of this? We have this machine, in their case, it was a mainframe that was being manually brought into an observability platform. And they're, looking at data in a rear view, and it's just causing absolute chaos in their business. This feeling isn't just a one-off feeling. Many organizations are dealing with an increasing complexity of their ecosystems combined with tool overload. So whether that's businesses that are acquiring other companies, bringing in systems that they didn't previously own, trying to scale for growth, just needing a number of tools. We have seen studies that have shown that even the tools that are being used for observability and monitoring can be around 20 plus. And really understanding what's the impact, what's the issue, how do we handle change management effectively when we have an ecosystem of solutions that is really scattered and in many cases siloed. Adding to that layer is this I and this Z systems that aren't necessarily, automated in bringing over their data for visibility and observability and monitoring. And so the question becomes, when we think about AI, I mean, this year has been the year of AI, and one has to ask themselves, and I definitely do this as someone who works in the marketing field, does AI just have the best PR firm in the world, or is it really an opportunity? And when we think about AI ops, there are some really good things that can come from this. And, it's beyond just that buzzword of AI. AI ops introduces a modern, agile approach that really helps to unify teams, tools, and workflows involved in incident responses. And so, what are these unified teams doing to address issues? What is the data doing for you? How does that data help you get proactive and predictive management of systems? And then also just helping you to improve the collaboration and consistency and productivity across your organization when it comes to observability and monitoring. And, like everything, AI is great. And the promise of AI ops is amazing. But we still have an unreliable environment for IT operations today. Looking at different studies from analyst firms, from vendors that play in this space, we know that nothing is perfect and people kind of have to overcome several different things. So first, IT ops professionals, the majority of them still have trouble keeping up with technological changes. That is just because of the breadth of the systems that they're using in their environment to monitor and to observe. We have, leaders in these teams saying, that the technical debt is really a big threat and challenge facing their organization because they are on the hook for fulfilling these gaps in maybe legacy reporting or legacy systems, and they're not quite getting there. And that also creates another challenge. And then we have, this idea of the MTTR, a lot of that time is spent waiting. So that quote that I started out this webinar with, I mean, that was somebody who, after that quote, just said, we spent so much time before we had Precisely just waiting to see what the real answer is. And, kind of adding to this, and a stat that I didn't put here, but I think when we think about this, it's like, yeah, of course. Really only 2 out of every 10 enterprises are able to really successfully intercept more than 50% of their incidences. And when you think about the context in which people are operating, that makes total sense. There's so much happening. And so, what happens when we don't address these issues and we don't kind of start to look at more intelligence in solving these problems? We create a cycle of status quo. So, we have data silos, we have team silos. So maybe people that are using Datadog aren't talking to the people that are using ServiceNow. So then as a result, there's a gap in a knowledge, in a coverage, in a process. Add in other types of systems such as Mainframe or you have another layer of complexity. You have SMEs in that area that aren't necessarily speaking to the people that are monitoring solutions. Then you have manual workflows. So of course, things that do not have native integration into these observability tools. Yes, you can promise all the AI in the world that you want, but if you have these manual workflows, you're just looking at reporting on a delay and information in the rearview mirror. And because you're looking at information on a rearview mirror and you're siloed, there's really no room to improve anything. And so we have poor NTTR, we have inconsistencies in processes, we have disconnected systems. And all of this equates to, if we were going to give us a grade, if this was a test, we would have an F. We would fail because as a result of, not having consistency, that automated visibility, that proactivity into all of our systems, we're really hurting ourselves in effectively monitoring for information. We have systems that maybe are not included in IT observability tooling. We have CMDB inaccuracies because we have things like the mainframe and that are just kept out or delivered on delay. And then we have an incomplete service map overall. And so we really need to find a way to, address these issues effectively in one solution. And when we think about this, IT operations vendors have heard this. We think about the folks that are in this slide, that are on the right side of the slide. They all know this. They are all doing marketing around AI ops, improving productivity, trying to get everyone into one system. But the reality is that IT environments are complex, as shown, as you know. And so when it comes to adding something like a mainframe or an into observability, we have to kind of look at solutions that allow us to bring these things together. And so here we have Precisely Ironstream, using a centralized user experience that Ian will show you a little bit later. In the presentation, we have something that helps you bring the IBM systems together for visibility across a variety of target platforms. And, many people that we speak to say, oh, okay, great. I can bring in my mainframe or I already get that. Thanks. But, this is my manual process is good enough. Well, the reality is that when you bring these things in a real-time fashion or near real-time fashion, you get a lot of goodness across security, operations, and application data. So thinking about security, wouldn't you like to know as soon as there's a change profile of events or a high hit of user activities? Wouldn't you like to know that as it happens instead of an hour from now where someone might be accessing your system? When you're looking at operations, it's good to understand capacity, CPU utilization, job durations, disk performance, all of these things that can greatly impact the serviceability of your organization. And then finally, when you're looking at application data, you may have employee database use cases that are specific to your business that you need to look at. Having these within the context of your larger IT ops workflow is so, so critical. And so To be able to do this, there's a couple different steps that we recommend when you're thinking about bringing IBM systems into these observability and AI ops oriented use cases. The first thing is to understand the data that's contained in your I or your Z. There's lots of information in an I or a Z, and parsing that out will help you then understand what the data can be used for. So, for example, a system audit journal could maybe give you invalid login attempts. Or you could look at an accounting journal to see what that does for changes in system values or user profiles. So there's all of this different information that once you have it in the context, not only of the system itself, but in the rest of your business and what the impacts of those things are in relation to other areas of your business that this application is serving, it can make a world of difference. And it can help you actually put into practice that AI ops ideal that we have that we want to do when it comes to making things more intelligent. And when it comes to AI ops, just like anything else, it's really important to understand and know how you want to bring in that I or Z to inform the process. And I think that's where a lot of challenges actually start is people aren't asking those basic questions. Like, what do you want or need to monitor? Is it users? Is it access to failures? Is it specific customer data? What's going to be in my alert categories? What other areas am I bringing in intelligence to understand how these systems are performing? Is it users? Is it groups? Is it data? Do I understand the business priorities? So if we know that different departments maybe are using different types of monitoring solutions, understanding the departmental needs for each area of the business, what those targets systems require, whether that's departmental, a company, maybe even you have an external regulation that you must use some certain combination of things, understanding all of that is going to help improve the intelligence around these processes. And then also just asking, we know we live in a complex world. We know we want to get out of that complexity. We know AI is going to help us, but also at the same time, what's the baseline for your company? Is it a regulation like a HIPAA? Is it a payment card industry data security standard? What is that baseline for success for your organization? And that is also a really great place to start. And then finally, of course, if you're attending this webinar, you're interested in understanding, what one can do with IBM and Z in your IT ops platform for AI. And really, that is just creating a connection between the IBM or Z and those IT ops platforms that are using AI to bring intelligence to your organization. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Ian to do his demo to show you how Precisely Ironstream is able to execute on this and help you drive that AI ops.
Thank you, Ariana. Let's now turn our attention to some real examples. In this section, I'm going to give you a couple of demos. We're going to focus on Datadog and ServiceNow. But first, let's look at the AIOps journey, because there is a journey that you must take in order to achieve success with AIOps, a journey of moving from reactive to self-healing. And here's an example that I've borrowed from ServiceNow, and all credit goes to them for these 4 steps. It starts on the left where you are struggling to be proactive. You're relying on manual processes, have siloed IT. And this is a very sad but true situation that we see all too often, even in mission critical IT environments. Here you rely on things like spreadsheets, email, and trying to get hold of that person who never seems to be at his desk via the phone at the point in time when you really need some help and things are starting to catch fire. If you have a mainframe or IBM I environment, this situation of struggling may be somewhat familiar. Again, we have testimony from customers that say, yes, everything works until it comes to the mainframe or IBM I, and we have to step out of the process and do something different. So you don't have that overall holistic view and the ability to respond. And this is all hampered by the IBM platforms being out of context, looked after, albeit quite well, by an isolated, separate team. Or you most probably are at the 40% level on this diagram, where you have achieved some automation. You are driving some processes, responding to issues and situations, perhaps exploiting capabilities of on-platform tools that are from perhaps another era and aimed at subject matter experts. Yes, they do a great job, but they are complex. So better, but still probably siloed and out of context with the rest of your IT. The idea of doing what is classed as winning at level 3, or even the lofty heights of self-healing at level 4, seem way beyond the realms of possibility. But not necessarily so. Many organizations are absolutely already there, and it's even easier and a shorter journey than you may think. If, of course, you have the right tools and the mindset to achieve that goal. And this is where smart people are focusing, and they are absolutely seeing the advantages that can be achieved. But there is a theme running through all of this, and it's an important theme: getting the right data to the right tools. And this can be even more challenging when dealing with your mainframe or IBM power systems. And of course, this is where we can help. So let's take a look. Let's just start with covering what I just said around capturing the data and getting it to the right targets, because that really underpins everything you're trying to achieve. If you can't get the right data to the right targets, you're not going to be able to achieve your AIOps goals. So here is an example where we make it as easy as 1, 2, 3 to achieve just that. On the left, we have step 1, which is the collector. We have collectors that run on the IBM platforms that efficiently capture the information as quickly as possible and deliver to the targets that you want to use today. Step 2 is then using our Ironstream Hub component, which allows you to manipulate the information before delivery to the target that you have chosen. Now here what we're doing is, and I'll give you an example of this in a moment, we're actually filtering the data down to what we want to achieve, and actually we're delivering the information to 2 different endpoints. So that's splitting the information to deliver to the use cases that you want to actually capture with the data that you're sending across to the tools you're targeting. And of course, what we're doing in this case is step 3, we're targeting Datadog in this scenario. It doesn't have to be Datadog, it could be many other things, because Ironstream today can actually send to multiple targets. And this is a growing theme that we have across Ironstream to meet what we're seeing in the market today as companies transition from tool A to tool B, or actually expand what they're doing with different use cases depending on what they're doing with the data. They may be using multiple tools and not just reliant on a single tool to capture everything that they need to look at in today's complex IT environments. So let's now look at the actual demos of these products. All right, this is the Ironstream Hub. It's a browser-based component that we run to allow you to create what we call data pipelines. So a data pipeline is really simple. It's in effect just a connection between a source and a target. In fact, it can actually be multiple sources and multiple targets, and I'll illustrate that in a moment. But just to show you how simple it is to set up, when you go to create a pipeline, you are presented with a canvas that contains a single source and a single target. It's really the basics of what you can achieve here. To configure each, you just simply click on them. For the source, I have the options of IBM I and IBM Z OS. That's as of today, and that may change in the future. For targets, I have a growing list of targets that, as we build this out, we're adding more and more into what we're doing. But the principles are the same in the fact that when you click one of these, not only do you then pick what you want, you then start adding in all the things that we don't know. Things like IP addresses and port numbers that are unique to how you want it set up and what you want to do with that. So it is really easy to get these things up and running. And depending on the target that you pick, again, you have to fill in various things around what you have to provide in order to deliver things to that given target that you'll want to use in this use case. Okay, so I'm just going to step back to the list of pipelines that I've already created. And again, just to underline how simple it is, I've got one that's already running, and this is delivering from one of our demo environments on the mainframe through to Google Security Ops in the cloud using our new Ironstream ZOS parser, which is emerging as I speak right now with some work we're doing with Google. One of the more complex ones I've got here, just to expand upon what we're talking about, is a Datadog demo. Just let me just zoom out a little bit so you can see the full pipeline. May look complex, but it's really not. It's really just doing simple filtering, really just to give you the data you need to answer the questions that you need to get from this information. Simple as that. So again, going from left to right, we have the source. In this case, just for demo purposes, we have data coming from the mainframe and two green boxes. These are the endpoints. This is going to the metric endpoint within the Datadog instance that I'm running. And also we have data going to the log endpoint. Okay. So if you know anything about Datadog, there are a couple of the entry points that they have into their infrastructure. There's other things that we're looking at around that, but the principles are exactly the same. Depending on the tool you're going to, they'll have certain requirements and certain things you have to do to be able to deliver data to it. And we take care of that as much as we can. So what I'm doing here is sending data down two pathways. All the data goes down each, but I'm actually filtering down to what I need. In this case, I only want system type data. And that's just a type of information we can capture on the mainframe. And there's many different types, by the way. And just for ease, I'm just parsing it out based on a field I know that's in there and saying I only want system information. Simple as that. And the other one, I'm saying I want everything apart from system. Okay. And so if it's going down this pathway, it's only system data, and then I'm sending just the metric information onto the metric endpoint. Simple as that. I'm not going to cover that. I'm going to really dig into the other one here. I'm going to demonstrate this, which is the non-system information that's going down this pathway, because what I'm doing within this, I'm then separating it again into I just want syslog information. Again, a simple filter. Everything else that's not syslog goes around this pathway and continues on, where ultimately I'm adding in a couple of other things, which are some fields into the payload to say I want to add Datadog tags and host name. There are other ways of doing this, but I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes before it's actually delivered to the log endpoint. But for the syslog information, I'm splitting it again and deciding what I want to do with it, because if it's something that contains, again, just some data I know that's in the output, if I find this, I then am adding a error status to it so I can pick them out in the data when it actually is visualized within Datadog. Okay, so really it's quite a simple example, but it shows you the capabilities and the power of what you can do with this kind of information. As I said, there are other ways of doing this depending on the tool that you're using, but it was just showing the principles of the pipeline. It may look complex, but actually is not. It literally took me a couple of minutes to set this up, and once you've done it, you can then, start having fun with the data. The other thing I will say is we do have a simulate option here, and I'm not going to demonstrate that today, but it allows you to capture information and then test the things like filtering and etc. to make sure you get what you want before you start delivering it. Okay, so hopefully that gives you an overview of what we're doing with the Ironstream Hub. And now I'll just jump across to Datadog to show you what's actually going on in that tool. And here we are. This is Datadog. For those that haven't seen it before, maybe for some it's very familiar. What I'm doing is streaming data in live into my Datadog instance over the last one day. If I just split this out into a pie chart, and this is just for example purposes, I've using this MF source type, the mainframe source type of information we're bringing across. I've got a collection of different types of SMF, if you know what that is, and also syslog data that's coming in. So if I just wanted to zoom in on the syslog type information, let's just do that, so 100% syslog, and then say over the last 15 minutes and I want to look at that in a list, I could see all the messages that are coming in. And by the way, this is currently being sent in JSON format, which is readily absorbed into these kinds of tools. But out of that, you can then leverage the information within the data to do what you need to do and answer the questions you have around that kind of scenario that you're building out. What I'm doing, as you saw earlier in the Ironstream Hub in the pipeline, is I'm decorating the data with different statuses. So in this case, error, and it's where I had this little value in the data. So again, it's finding it in the payload, marking it, and then delivering the information into Datadog. Just to take this a little bit further, what you can do obviously from this is then start having fun building out dashboards. And here I've got a dashboard that's built using the data that's coming in. So at the bottom we have syslog information showing, so you don't have to look at the console anymore. You don't necessarily have to be a mainframe expert to get this information and have fun with it. And of course, you can visualize it many different ways to show what you need in your context. And I'm just giving you some examples here around CPU and things like MSU. There's just so many things you can do with it, and I get blown away every day by what I see coming from different scenarios and across different customers that we operate with. Okay, so that's Datadog. What you should bear in mind as well in the context of AIOps is Datadog really allows you to do a lot. The key thing, though, is getting that information into the tool, because Datadog allows you to send out alerts and interact with other things based on the information that's coming in. If you looked earlier, you could see there was an outlier that's been automatically found in the data. Little bit of an unusual situation, maybe because I'm forcing that by just decorating the data with the error status that's coming in. But if that was a situation where you were getting repeated messages that you wanted to focus in and make sure that you really understand what is relevant in your context. Maybe something happens that's annoying or actually mission critical. And I've certainly seen both scenarios with customers where it goes offline, it just happens, we take care of it, or no, we absolutely need to know before it becomes a problem, which is probably more of the real scenario. This is what things like Datadog can actually do for you, is actually give you that heads up view around what's happening, give you that time to fix luxury that maybe you're missing at the moment. The AIOps starts to creep into what we're doing. So you leverage these tools, best practice for today, using the data that is from that holistic view of what you have within your IT stack, which includes the IBM platforms. Okay, so that's Datadog. What I'm going to do now is just transition across to ServiceNow, just to extend the thinking around AIOps. And here we are in ServiceNow. Some of you may be very familiar with ServiceNow and others may not have seen it before. So I'm just going to give you a very quick high-level run-through of how ServiceNow approaches AIOps in the context of IT operations. AIOps does go into other areas of the product, but we're just going to be centered on IT operations. Just a quick side note while I've got your attention here. For the Ironstream family of products, we do have integrations into AIOps in the context of event management. So what I'm showing here is a screen that shows an overview for event management, the number of incidents and alerts, etc., that are all bubbling around the system coming from what's happening across IT. But again, in the context of Ironstream, what we have is not only the event management integrations for Mainframe and IBM, but we also have discovery and service mapping for both of these areas as well. So just an FYI while we're there. Back to AIOps. Really predicated on alerts, which can be turned into incidents. An alert is an element of information that could be critical, or it could be very repetitive, or a bit of an outlier, or just informational. Many different shapes, sizes, etc., coming in from your IT infrastructure as things are taking place or not taking place, as may be the case. And what you can do with those is automate or manually process them to create incidents that the system or humans have to take, some care around and do something with. So it's a feed of information coming in. Within that context, the way event management works is operating on event rules. So if we go into that list, we can see here that out of the box, we provide, from an Ironstream perspective, a whole bunch of different alert types. These are the mainframe flavored alerts. You can see there's actually down here, it's showing you a number of 120. We have 120 rules in this case that we provided. And if we zip across to the IBM, the 400 set of rules, you can see we've got more. We've got 196 rules out of the box. And just to give you an example how AIOps works, and again in this context, if we go into something as a simple rule as monitoring CPU usage, and we're loading up the rule, super simple how things are set up, but actually very powerful at the same time. So you filter the alerts that are coming in where it meets certain criteria, and that could be very simple or quite complex. Here we're looking for a metric value that's coming in with a certain name, AS400 CPU in this case. What we're also doing here is then mapping that into how we want to bring it into an alert, that the data's come in and now we're mapping the fields into the alert. And equally, we're also applying a threshold. Quite often you can get a lot of alerts that are coming in, and really you only need to be told about one of them. You don't need to be necessarily flooded with alerts, and that's something that ServiceNow takes care of very well. And what we're also doing here is we're qualifying the alert to only really be triggered or passed further into the infrastructure if the threshold value, in this case 70 or 70%, is exceeded in this case. So it's only going to actually carry on if the CPU value, in this case, the number for that is over 70. And then from that, you can go on to do other things such as binding and various things. So in this case, it's bound to an IBM LPAR. Okay. So that's giving you the onboarding intake process. These rules are running behind the scenes. And what we're doing in the context of Ironstream is feeding information into the event engine, into event management to allow things to happen. Just going to jump across now to probably the space where those people that operate with alerts as part of their role. And here we have the service operations workspace. And the idea is you have teams or individuals within teams that are looking at these things that maybe have specialties of focus areas they work with, but the system can apply rules as data's coming in, crystallizing the noise that's coming from IT into actionable things that need to be looked at. And here I've been auto-assigned a couple of example alerts. So I've got two that need my attention, and I can dive into them and look at various things. So once you do that, you're marshalling and sending the alerts to the right people to get the right attention, if that needs to be done, or letting the system, through the power of workflow, take care of that. So if you just go into a single alert here, you can see some of the details around various things. And again, I'm not going to dig into all the detail at all here because this is just a very high level overview of what AIOps does in the context of what we do with ServiceNow. But one of the great things you can do is, based on the context of what's coming in, you can pull in things like playbooks. And within that, you can run in-context processing, let's say workflow, that allows things to say, I've got an alert for this. I want to then create that into an incident that carries it forward to have more attention wrapped around it, or actually run something like a workflow to do something about it. And in our context, what we have is the ability to do something about it back on the source platform. So we allow you to run a workflow that triggers something to happen on the IBM I or the mainframe. And as an example, you have something like a VTAM node on the mainframe that has gone offline. Maybe regular, maybe unusual, I don't know which, but you then have the ability to run a workflow in ServiceNow to put that back online and make the system continue to work. Okay, slightly esoteric example, but the principle is exactly the same. What we have is two-way communication to allow things to happen if you want that to take place. The key point here, though, is that you have mechanisms in place within the Now platform to bring the four corners of IT together, to see what's going on and actually be able to improve your agility around identification and response to those things that are occurring, and make sure your IT resilience, your IT health are as good as they can be, and you're running your A game every day. Okay, that was ServiceNow. Let's now go back to the presentation.
Thank you, Ian, for that wonderful demo. It was really great to see all of the things that we were talking about in the front half of this presentation and webinar really come together in your demo, and to see how easy it is using Ironstream to bring that complex machine data from IBM I or Z into AI ops platforms like ServiceNow and Datadog. We are over for our webinar time, so we will take all of your questions offline and respond back to you. But if you are interested in getting your own demo and talking more about this topic, we encourage you to go to precisely.com/contact to schedule a demo today. We are more than happy to take all of your questions and dive further into this topic. Thank you again so much for your time today.